My goodness. Good afternoon, evening, everybody. I'm your cruise host, Jason, and here we are with the last All Access Pass, joined by a man, a myth, a legend, a gentleman who means a lot to a lot of you, Mr. Micky Dolenz. First and most importantly, sir, welcome back. Thank you for coming back to be with us.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's great. And boy, fingers crossed. Look at that ocean.
I know. We're smooth and calm out there. We like smooth. We like smooth.
We like smooth.
Last time you were here, I asked you actually this exact same question because we were talking about the ocean being smooth. On stage, does it hit you harder before you go on and you don't really feel it while you're performing if it's rocking, or do you feel it while you're performing?
Oh, I feel it big time, and I usually forget.
Yeah.
I think I said this the other night. I forget that I'm on a ship in the middle of a song, and I'm like going like this, and I'm like, oh, it must be the acid. Yeah. No, acid indigestion.
Yes. Slightly
acid reflux. Yeah. I forget sometimes.
Sure.
And then I go, oh, God, what's going on here?
I think one of the fun things, too, if you haven't cruised much, some of you in the room, because we have had a little motion this week, and you've probably felt this, when you do get back to land, you will feel like you're still moving for a couple of hours. Some people takes a day or two to get over it, but...
I've been feeling like that since the 60s.
We're still moving.
I'm still moving.
Well, as you know, because you've been up here with me before, we like to open it up to audience questions. And man, I wish I could say they hated you, but we got a few questions. So I know we won't have time to get through all of them.
That's right, yeah.
But I'd love to get through a few of them. Usually I start with talking about your past, but we all know your past. So let's jump into some fun guest questions here. Ruth comes to us from Utah. I love you. You are my favorite monkey. Who was the wildest one of you?
Well, I don't know. And is that you, Ruth, over there? Yeah. It depends in what context.
This is fair.
I guess the wildest in the show, the wildest not on the show, at home, partying. When we were filming the television show, we really didn't have a chance to be wild. We filmed it, and you've heard me say this, from the get-go, we were working 24/7. On the television show for 10 hours a day, easily. And then into the recording studio at night for a couple hours. And then you just go home and try to get sleep and be up at 6 o'clock in the morning. So for those couple of years when we were filming the television show, there wasn't a whole lot of time, even at that age, to do anything else. And I was married. I had a kid growing up. And so, but when we went on tour, then, of course, we did have some more time, and we partied like everybody else, but never to the degree that, made the news or, had really major problems. But we all, I guess, at times we all were a bit wild in our own particular way. But like I say, never anything that went off the charts or something.
But the fandom around you guys was crazy.
Yeah, it was.
It was. You tell one of my all-time favorite stories, and it's you going to the mall and thinking there was.
Oh yeah,
that's one of my favorites. So please tell us that story.
It was just to tie up that last thing, to finish the answer to a question. I don't remember. I'm told I had a great time. And that's the name of my book that's coming out in November. I'm told I had a good time. And it's a picture book, big cocktail table picture book. So keep your eyes out for that. A lot from my archives, my own personal photos I took of Jimi Hendrix with us and all that kind of stuff. So that's pretty cool. Sorry, what was the question?
The fans.
Oh, yeah.
The fans and you going to the mall.
It was the first Christmas. We've been filming since the beginning of the summer of 66. And the show came out in September of 66. And it was the first Christmas. And we had a hiatus, time off for Christmas. And my family lived up in San Jose, so I was scrambling. It was like 2-week hiatus. I was scrambling to to get my Christmas list and do my shopping, and I'm driving and going crazy. And I pull up to the local mall where I lived, where I'd shopped at all my life since I was a child. I'd been going to this mall in the San Fernando Valley and doing my Christmas shopping. And I pull up in my new little GTO they gave us, and then took back, by the way.
As they do. As they do, yeah.
As they do. And I pull up in the parking lot, and I got my list, and I'm going in and through the big glass doors, and I walk in, and all of a sudden I see all these people screaming and yelling at me and running at me, screaming and yelling and running at me. And I thought it was a fire. And I was holding the door open going, this way, don't panic, don't run, slow down, it's okay. And then all of a sudden I realized they were running at me.
You, yeah.
At me. And I was like, oh, shit.
Then you're running.
I had to get back in my car and leave. I had to have my roadie buy all my Christmas presents.
Ellen comes to us from Texas, and actually this plays off what you're talking about with your picture book. I was at one of the July 1967, I believe, concerts in New York when Jimi Hendrix opened. Given how the collaboration went, did you guys stay in contact, and what was that like?
Well, I've told the story so many times. You've all heard about it, about him opening for us. And we became pretty good friends. I mean, we're on tour. It wasn't for that long. I don't know how many shows he did. I think 6 or 8 or something like that. And then we had other opening acts. We had the Fifth Dimension. We had Ike and Tina Turner. And he broke his record, the first record on tour, and then went off headlining. And I think I bumped into him a couple of times after that, but not on a regular basis. And then, of course, shortly thereafter, he tragically passed away. But he was really a lovely guy. He was just my age, I think maybe a year or two older, that's all. Early 20s, and very quiet, very quiet, and not at all like his personality on stage, his persona on stage. But that's not uncommon either. I mean, when I was on stage in those days, not so much now, but on stage in those days, I was playing Micky the wacky drummer from the Monkees.
You're playing a role.
To some degree, yeah. Not so much anymore.
I almost just spit out all of my water. That would have been good. Yeah. No, you almost spit out your water. Jeff comes to us from Los Angeles. I've seen you for over 40 years. Love you guys. Why don't you, or do you ever play the Monkees theme in your concerts?
We just kind of had a tacit understanding at the first time we went on the stage. I don't remember specifically, but it was just this kind of unspoken thing that we're never going to sing that because it just sounds so self-referential. I mean, can you imagine? Hey, we're the Beatles. And people say, we Beatles. Hey, we're the whatever,
Rolling Stones.
I don't know if the Stones ever did Rolling Stone.
Yeah.
I doubt it. So it was just this understanding, and it just I don't know. It just feels like it would be kind of creepy.
Yeah, that's fair.
Now, what do I sing?
Yeah, that's fair. Rich comes to us from Orlando. Do you personally know what happened to the Monkey Mobile?
Yeah, there was 2 of them made by Dean Jeffries, a very famous car designer. George Barris used to claim he designed them, but he didn't, and I called him out on it a couple times. He refurbished one. There was 2. They just disappeared. One, I heard, ended up as an airport shuttle in Jamaica.
Sounds about right.
And from I don't know where the airport is in Jamaica, back and forth. And then eventually they were sold around. I wish the hell I'd bought one. And George, and one of them then caught on fire or something because
Oy.
nobody was taking care of it. And so some fuel leak and it caught on fire, and George Barris refurbished it. Now one's owned by somebody in the Midwest. I don't know. Now there's a couple of, what do you call them? Knockoffs.
Knockoffs. Refurbs.
You know what?
Refurbished versions
No.
of them. Well, not of them, but I mean knockoffs, like refurbished versions of them.
Yeah,
right?
they're totally
Yeah.
fake. They're totally fake versions. So I can't even tell which is which now.
It's a good knockoff.
I do these conventions once in a while, Comic-Con conventions, and the Monkey Mobile will show up also.
Yeah.
It makes more money than I do.
You know someone that's built a version of one? Yeah.
Yeah. Ah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Beverly comes to us from Texas. Not really a question, but I loved and still love your group and the TV show so much. I actually named my new puppy Mickey.
Aw.
It is a Pekingese poodle mix called a Pickapoo. Mickey the Pickapoo. Debbie from Virginia. You made a record, I think before you were even a monkey, please correct me if I'm wrong, called Don't Do It. It is really good. Do you still sing it ever?
We've sung it frequently, especially recently because my musical director, Wayne, he lived back east in New York area before the Monkees, and it became a pretty substantial, it got top 20, I think, regionally, in the East Coast stuff. I'd recorded that, that was my first recording session. I'd been singing with my sister and in a cover band called Mickey and the One Nighters, and you've heard all that. And a couple of producers saw me singing locally at an open mic, and they said, "You want to record?" I said, "Yeah, cool." And they said, "Do you have any material?" I said, "Yeah, I wrote a couple of songs. Don't Do It was one of them." And they said, "Okay, well, the session's next week." And we go down there, and sure enough, my first session in some big studio in Hollywood. And there's like 4 musicians, I remember, and and the 2 producer guys and an engineer. And I didn't know what was going on. And the musicians play the tracks, and I sing the songs, and they never did anything with it at the time. It was a very small company. But then when the Monkees hit, of course, then all of a sudden this single gets released, Micky Dolenz. And I remember like months later, God, at least months, maybe a year or 2 later, we're recording in the studio. And one of my, who became a really good friend of mine, was Glenn Campbell. Incredible person, incredible talent, guitar player. And we're hanging out, our families are having lunch and dinner together. We became good friends. And one time at lunch or something, he says, "Do you remember that session you had before the Monkees in Hollywood, and a couple songs?" And I said, "Yeah, I remember." He says, "I was your guitar player." I had no idea. I said, "You're kidding. You waited this long?"
Yeah, exactly.
Because it was the Wrecking Crew.
Yeah.
And the other musicians and the Wrecking Crew. Hey.
Yeah, I mean, that's legend right there.
About time they got credit.
Absolutely.
Where credit is due. It was the Wrecking Crew. I realized later Earl Palmer was on the drums. And Joe Osborne was on the bass. I don't know who the piano player was. I'm not sure. It could have been Leon Russell. I don't know, or Larry Knechtel. I don't know, but so that
amazing.
was the first session. Yeah. Side note to that is that how many people ever heard that "Don't Do It" or "Huff Puff"? Oh, quite a few. Well, that vocal style that I was singing that in was kind of where I was going as a vocalist, as an artist. And for those of you that don't know, it was kind of like, "Don't do it, why don't you do it?" It was Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs, and that kind of, Huff, puff. The B-side was called Huff Puff. Huff, puff, I blow your house down. And I was screaming kind of, "Don't do it, why don't you do it?" And that's kind of where I was going vocally as an artist. Interesting.
So you thought.
So I thought.
Till a hard turn. Actually, let's talk a little bit about that. Over 400 kids auditioned to be Monkees. Is that correct? Over 400 people turned up.
That's what they say. I
Yeah.
mean, I didn't go to the cattle call
Yeah.
because I'd already had a television series.
Yes.
So when one has a television series, one does not go to the cattle call.
Not the general one.
One has a private audition with the producers. No, my first audition was with the two producers of the show, because I had an agent, and
Sure.
and a bit of a history.
Well, you were quirky.
Yeah, I was Corky on the TV show. And I actually remember the first audition, just read some lines from a pilot script, which I still have.
That's cool.
Actually,
You
the
still
pilot
have it.
script.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
and actually Monkees is spelled Monkeys.
Oh, really?
Yeah, on the pilot script. And it's until, I guess, some legal affairs guy at Screen Gems, Columbia, and NBC said, you'll never trademark that. But also people were spelling
Sure.
band names funny at the time, too. Yeah, I remember that audition, yeah.
That had to have been kind of wild there in the beginning, just building that, creating it, and then not really knowing where it's going to go or exactly what it's going to be, but then watching it take shape had to be pretty magical.
Well, you don't, and you never know. I
Yeah.
mean, I had some experience in the business. So, you know the story. I was going to school to be an architect. And when I got the pilot, I didn't even quit school. I just said, most pilots didn't sell.
Yeah.
They don't, still to this day. And so I didn't quit school. I kept going back to school. And when they got the order for the first season, then of course, I quit. But you never know. Yeah. And anybody who tells you that they know this is
I knew right away. Yeah, no, you didn't.
no, there's no, you never know, because in the case of the Monkees or any great, fantastic, project, television show or movie or record or something, my theory is, or my hypothesis, more accurately, is that you just gather around the people and hopefully you've gathered the right people and you work hard and you have a vision. And then at some point, the whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts.
Absolutely.
And it takes off. And so it's not just one or two things. It wasn't just me. It wasn't just the other guys. It wasn't just the producers. It wasn't just the writers. It wasn't just the songwriters. It doesn't work like that. That's the magical thing that
It
happens.
all has to come together.
Yeah. and you can't force it. You can try, and you can, people make the mistake of, this guy made a multi-million-dollar movie, and that one made a multi-million-dollar. So we'll just stick them together, and there'll be another
Multi-million-dollar.
And but it doesn't happen like that. There's no formulas. If there were, there'd be no flops.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Ken from Nashville, you've talked about being warmly received by the Beatles. They were kings of the world, and you were relative newcomers. Do you have a theory as to why you think they embraced you guys?
They got it. And I became fairly good friends with John and Paul, and mainly Ringo. I spent a lot of time with Ringo, and I'm told we had a great time. They just got it. And funnily enough, the UK, England, got the Monkees even more than the States did. And it was John that once said, and I hadn't even thought of it, I like the Monkees, I like the Marx Brothers. And that was the core, that was the heart of the show. It was the Marx Brothers on television. And so they got it. And people in the States that got it understood that.
Sure.
And I think that's the core, reason, is that they just got it.
They saw it. They knew where you were going.
Whereas who I call the hippoisie, they didn't necessarily get it. It kind of went, phew.
Linda comes to us from Melbourne, Australia. Of all the trips you have made to Australia, is there one that would be most memorable for you?
Well, I love Australia, by the way, wherever you are. And yeah, I love Australia. And I love New Zealand, too, if there's anybody here from. If it just wasn't so far away, it kills me because I'm planning on getting back to Australia at some point. What was the question?
Do you have a memorable?
Well, I guess it would
Obviously.
have to be the first Australian tour in '68, probably. I think it was. I don't know, because it was my first time there, and it was just so cool. And we went out into the outback, and we went to the koala and kangaroo farms, and you know, and I have pictures of all this. It was just amazing. So I remember that. But I also remember only been there a few times, maybe half a dozen times, and always had just such a wonderful time.
TD comes to us from Florida. My two favorite songs, Randy Scouse Git, which you explained, and Tapioca Tundra. What in the world is that about?
I have no friggin' idea. And I asked him, you know, what the hell? Because he would always, well, he was an incredible poet, you know,
Absolutely.
essentially. But his lyrics were sometimes incredibly enigmatic. And I'm not sure he even...
Yeah, exactly.
It just, you know, maybe stream of consciousness. No, I think that there was something subtle and an undercurrent of his poetry. But those songs, if you just read the lyrics without listening to the music, they're really incredible poetry. And I asked him, I think, what did Tapioca Tundra, what was that title? Because he would name his songs the strangest things. And I asked him, and he'd just go,
Yeah.
I'm told I had
a good time. Ken from San Diego, did you hang out and or collaborate with artists in Laurel Canyon?
Well, hung out a lot, but not didn't really collaborate, except with Harry Nilsson. He became probably my best friend at the time for years, and we really just started out hanging out. He had his first hit song with the Monkees, "Cuddly Toy," and have you heard that story about Harry Nilsson when he first started writing? No? Oh, this is a good one. We were recording Headquarters, which I'm going out on tour doing, as you probably all know now, starting this week, celebrating the 55th, Jesus.
Comes quick, doesn't it?
55th anniversary of us recording Headquarters, which was the album where we were finally given permission to go in and record our own stuff. I'm going out this week. And during those sessions, the publisher brought in this kid, our age, a little bit older, called Harry Nilsson. He said, this is a songwriter, and he, trying to sell songs. And we were looking for material by then for later albums. And Harry sits down at the piano, and I, for some reason, remember this. And he plays a couple tunes, and one of them was "Cuddly Toy," right? You know that song that Davey sang? And he played it, and Davey said, "Yeah, I like that. I'll do that. Yeah, I'll sing that song." Well, Harry Nilsson was obviously unknown at the time. He was working at a bank, he told me, when we became friends, in Van Nuys, and he was doing check clearance at night, then getting up and flogging his songs all day long, trying to get a buyer, a song deal. And so he tells me the story, and then he says, months later or whatever, "Do you remember when I came in and played those songs?" I said, "Yeah, sure I do." He said, "Well, I got to tell you, I was working at this bank, and the publisher guy took me out in the hallway after Davey said that he'd sing that song, and the publisher said, 'Harry, you can quit the bank.'" And of course, the rest, is history. We became very, very good. And then he eventually, kind of as a favor or just for fun, produced a couple of songs for me, a single that I did. One side was called Daybreak, I think, and I can't remember the other one, but and we just stayed very good friends for years and years.
Dave comes to us from Maryland. When the Monkees resurfaced in '86 with the Nickelodeon reruns and the 20-year tour, did you ever believe that the resurgence would have such staying power, or were there highs and lows along the way?
Well, I gotta, touch wood. After the Monkees, I left the States and moved to England, where I started directing and producing television shows. And I don't know, instinctively, I just maybe felt I needed to get out of LA in those days or something. I don't know. But I started doing all these TV shows in England quite successfully.
Yeah.
So I didn't have that post, thing, as you say, the highs and the lows. Well, I really never had the big lows because I just bailed.
Yeah.
And I went to England and I had quite a successful career as a television and film producer and director. And then in '86, when this producer said, you want to go back and sing those songs, it was originally for like 8 weeks. It was just going to be a short little summer. And I said to my wife at the time, we had 3 little kids, and we're going to play amusement parks and fairs, and it'll be fun.
Perfect.
I had another television series that I was supposed to produce and direct, and I just kind of put a hold on it, and I just said, we're just going to take the summer off and go have fun. And then 5 years later, I'm still on the road. And so no, I had no idea. Yeah.
Susan comes to us from Chattanooga. We saw you and Mike in concert in Chattanooga in October of 2021. An incredible performance from each of you. Did you know then that his time was growing so short?
Well, not literally, no. He had his health issues, as is public knowledge. We had to stop one tour mid-tour because he had some issues. But we ended up doing all those dates. But it was apparent, as it was with Peter. Peter had some pretty serious health issues that, again, were public knowledge. And with Mike, he was a trooper, and we did those tours. And then the last tour, he was kind of fragile, a little bit frail and fragile, but a trooper. He just got out there, and to his credit, just did what he had to do. But yeah, back then, 21, was it? Yeah.
21.
Yeah. Yeah, it was apparent that, there were some issues, but
It's tough to read the tea leaves in terms of time. Time's always tricky. Kelly comes to us from Cleveland, Ohio. I read somewhere that you were working on a physics degree while you were deciding on doing the 20th anniversary tour. Is that actually true? And can we now call you Dr. Dolenz?
I wish. Yes, that's true. I was. In England, they had a very famous high-level course. At that time, it was called correspondence courses. It was, what was it called? What was that? What's that correspondence course in England? Come on. What? Open University. Yes. And I've always been a science geek, basically. And I was working, doing this producing, directing, and I said, I've always loved physics, and so I signed up, and I absolutely started a physics degree, and I had been doing it for like at least a couple of years, a correspondence, and they would send, it was crazy because there was no internet, no online stuff, and they would send me these kits, they sent me a telescope and a microscope, and they sent rocks, geology stuff, and then you'd send it back. You'd finish
for your next kit.
You get your next kit, and I was well into it. And then Unfortunately, the 86 reunion came along.
Unfortunately, yeah, the terrible news. Is it something you would still pursue? Or
I do.
Oh, you do?
That's my bedside reading.
Yes.
I'm serious. Neil deGrasse Tyson.
That's heavy bedside reading.
And Brian Greene and Carl Sagan. And yeah, that's my bedside reading is right now I'm going through Einstein's special theory of relativity. Again.
So yes, Dr. Dolenz is appropriate if any of you see him in the hallway.
Well, not quite.
Albert from Buffalo, New York. The T-shirt I am wearing right now says, "My favorite people call me Granddad." What do your favorite people call you? I understand you have
I'm
a few
Gramps.
children. Gramps.
I picked Gramps. Yeah.
Gramps.
That's me.
Another Nick from New Jersey. Did all the zaniness in the Monkees TV show come naturally to you?
Good question. To some degree, it was. Well, how can I explain it? When they cast us, one of the first things they did was hire a guy named James Frawley, who had been an improv guy at Second City in Chicago with Elaine May and Mike Nichols, and he was teaching us improv. So from the get-go, these producers were like, we want it to be spontaneous, and we want. So we started training in improv, and then the scripts also had a level, but there were scripts, totally scripted episodes. But very quickly we started improvising a lot, and they encouraged it. They supported it. They just said, "What do you got?" And Jim Frawley started directing a lot of the episodes, and he was from improv, so it was like, encouraging us to like go, and it was great because a lot of the stuff they used in the final edit, to their credit, because in those days you never improv'd on television or in a movie. You had your lines, you were an actor, you showed up, you read your lines, you did it the best of your ability, you went home. But they really encouraged it and wanted us to just, and it was great, and it added to that zaniness of the show. But at times, it got so bad, we were literally bouncing off the walls. I'm not kidding. They had to shut the set down a couple of times because we were just uncontrollable. Just, whoa, we're Mickey back. Save the Texas prairie chicken. But they would use that stuff. They would use it, and then, but a couple of times they actually had to shut it down.
Spray you all with water to calm you down.
I liken it to a nuclear reaction. Oh, because of my science background.
Because you're a doctor.
You know nuclear physics.
Nuclear physics.
A physics power plant. It's great and it's really efficient, but you got to keep a lid on it. Because if it blows the lid, you got Fukushima or Chernobyl, and so you got to control it. But if you control it too much, the fire goes out.
Sure.
And so it was this looking back. The producers and directors must have been, Jesus Christ, how do we keep these? How do we keep the lid and keep it, but not let it go? So it.
He has one follow-up question. Do you actually have a favorite Monkees song?
Well, no, not really. I've been asked that many times. There's so many, and it would depend, what genre. Mm-hmm. Would it be a slow song, a ballad, a rocker, a pop song? If you break it down like that, I would say as ballad-wise for me, and I didn't sing many of the ballads David did, Sometime in the Morning by Carole King, Jerry Goffin. For, I don't know, for if it's really fast tempo rockin' thing, I think Circle Sky, Nesmith, if it was a pop, anthem-y kind of thing, it would have to be Porpoise Song or As We Go Along. Well, that would be a ballad, As We Go Along, beautiful tune. So it would depend on the genre. So I have lots.
Understandably. Yeah, understandably. DJ joins us from Georgia. DJ has fantastic handwriting. Do you enjoy... I love it. Your DJ's sister has fantastic handwriting. Very clean. Look at that handwriting. Yeah.
Oh my
That's
God,
sharp.
that's gorgeous.
Very sharp. Do you enjoy being on tour with your sister? Do you guys ever get on each other's nerves?
Anybody out there have siblings? Need I say more?
Russ comes to us from Texas. On stage, you hinted with your keyboard player about the future of your band. Any details you'd like to reveal?
Not yet.
Okay.
But this next upcoming tour shall reveal all.
Ah, there we go. Tune in, my friends. That's very TV. Cindy comes to us from Ohio. You always seem so relaxed on stage. Do you have a favorite relaxation activity that you can share publicly with the rest of us?
I can share publicly. I'll be honest. Since I was born in the business and grew up in and was on sets and on stages and all my life, I've really never got nervous or had butterflies doing the rock and roll singing thing. Before the Monkees, singing Chuck Berry stuff and whatever, and then with the Monkees, not really. The only time I really had major anxiety, butterflies, was when I started doing the Broadway musicals, because that was it was very different.
It's a different world.
And oh boy, and all by myself out there.
Yeah.
No backup band.
Nowhere to hide.
Nowhere to hide, and but most entertainers I've heard will tell you it happens backstage, the nervousness. Once you're on stage, it kind of goes away. I mean, I will worry about new lyrics that I have to learn or something, until I get it really, muscle memory. But the nervousness happens backstage.
Makes sense. She also follows it up with 9-year-old me would have driven you crazy and asked, what's your favorite candy? You're cute, Cindy.
Candy bars. Anybody heard of them?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Oh, yeah.
You have?
I know. Oh, yeah.
My mom used to have them, and I like that one.
Everyone heard that as, candy bars. Not,
It's called.
Yeah, Sue comes to us from Cleveland, Ohio. How does it make you feel to know that the Monkees are multi-generational? Not many groups can claim that. I'm a first-generation fan, but my adult children love your music, and my grandchildren love your music. What a legacy. You are truly beloved by so many.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
But again, I don't put it down to just me. I've said this before, or the other three guys, or any particular thing. But as far as the music goes, I have to and always give credit to the songwriters. Because if you start with great material, it's kind of hard to screw it up. You can try, but... So we started out with incredible material. As all of you know, Carole King and Jerry Goffin, Boyce and Hart, Neil Diamond, Neil Sedaka, Harry Nilsson, Paul Williams, Carol Bayer Sager, Jeff Barry. I mean, incredible songwriters.
Yeah, truly.
And I have to give credit to that as far as the music standing up. And the television show, which also stands up, you got to give credit to a whole lot of people. The writers, incredible television writers, the producers, Bob Rafelson, Bert Schneider, Bob, whose original idea it was. There's a whole lot of people involved, and this goes back to what I said. The whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts. But you can't tear apart any show or in anything. You can't tear apart a record and say, oh, well, it was only the vocal.
Sure.
Oh, it was only the guitar part. It was just the chords. It doesn't work like that. Like, you can't tear apart Star Trek and say, oh, it was just Leonard Nimoy's ears. That's why it was famous. Or it was just William Shatner. Or it was just the special effects.
It's like taking apart a recipe.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, you can't take just one piece of the recipe.
No.
Ken, how did the Monkees get Stepping Stone ahead of Paul Revere and the Raiders?
Well, we didn't. If I'm not mistaken, Paul Revere and the Raiders actually recorded it first.
Did they?
Is Andrew here?
Andrew?
Andrew Sandoval? No, he's not. He'll hear from me.
Yeah.
He's my monkey expert. Andrew, my understanding was that actually they did record it first, but I made it a hit.
I like it. Steve comes to us from Sydney, Australia. At the start of the movie Head, how far did they make you fall during the filming when you jumped off the bridge?
Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I never jumped off of a bridge. No, there was a number of different shots and special effects, and at the time, some of the shots of me falling in through the air was done off of a trampoline, and some of the other shots were a dummy, making a long distance, a far away shot. There was a bunch of different shots and angles and camera work to make that work. And when we went to the Bahamas to do the underwater stuff, Jack Nicholson was the second unit cameraman, second unit director, sorry. And he and I and Bob went to the Bahamas to do the underwater stuff. And Jack wrote the screenplay, along with us, by the way. And I think the farthest I jumped to get the shot going really down deep into the water, I don't remember. I think it might have been off a platform or off a dock or off something high on the boat that I dove into the water. I jumped into the water, and then had to go down and sink as far as I could until, and I was holding my breath, obviously, and I didn't have tanks on or any kind of thing, and they had a weight belt so I would sink. And it's funny because I found out they took out a massive life insurance.
Yeah, shocking.
I'm kidding. And I would sink as far as I could. It wasn't very deep. I don't know, 15 feet or something, 20 feet.
It's deep enough.
I sank as far as I could until I signaled to these safety underwater scuba divers who were in all the equipment, and they had a spare mask with tanks, and I would just sink as far as I could until I went. And they would
hope one of them gave you a mask.
Swim over and give me the mask, and then okay, do it again.
Yeah. No monkeys were harmed in the filming of this episode. Yeah. Jeannie comes to us from Staten Island. Hi, Mickey. Do you foresee yourself returning to Broadway at all? You were so good.
Make me an offer.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah. I don't know if I would do a national tour again. That was brutal.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
I don't know if I'd do that, but yeah, I would love to. It depends on the part also in the show. Not for. I wouldn't do it just in any case, but yeah, if it was a wonderful part and a great show, yeah, I'd love to.
I love that.
Well, the Monkees. Sorry to.
No, please.
But it's important to note the Monkees was musical theater on television. Mm-hmm. It was like a Marx Brothers musical, if you've ever seen one, singing, dancing,
Absolutely.
chases, fun, bad guy, good, jokes. And if you look at the Monkees television series as a half-hour Marx Brothers episode, that's the closest thing as accurate as it could be.
I'll take that. Only a couple left here. Steve from Virginia, we thought you were so great on Monkees, Adam 12, Boy Meets World, etc. Do you plan on acting on TV again?
Make me an offer. I did an episode of a thing called Difficult People.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody saw that. It was cute. A couple TV things, and I just wait for most film and television producer, writer, directors, they hear the name Micky Dolenz, and frankly, we don't need a drummer.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I'm afraid that's the business.
Yeah, exactly. Christy is from West Virginia. Being a huge fan, every time I see you is so amazing. Is there anyone that you get that excited, I'm assuming famous person, that you get that excited to see, or is there someone you would like to meet that you haven't yet?
Well, musically, my heroes, my idols were people like Johnny Mathis, who I met eventually. Went to a concert a couple years ago. He was a huge influence. Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Fats Domino, Jerry Lee Lewis.
All pioneers.
They were all on our TV special, 33 1/3 Revolutions per Monkey. But meeting Johnny Mathis was pretty amazing. Nat
that.
King Cole. I mean, those were all the vocalists that I sort of identify. Those were my idols. Yeah.
Cindy from Ann Arbor, urban legend. During the producer interview, a producer threw a glass of water in the face of a person who became a monkey to see how he would react. He picked up a glass of water and threw it right back in the producer's face. True or false? Was this you?
Well, not me.
Okay.
I never heard that one.
Oh, there you go.
Never heard that urban myth. But
Cindy's been paying attention.
no, I never heard that one.
Kay comes to us. Oh, this is interesting. Kay went the other direction here with an earlier conversation. Kay comes to us from Ottawa, up in Canada. Is there a Monkees song that you are tired of performing?
I don't think. I can't think of anything that I'm tired of. It's my job. I mean, it's what I do. But the shows are the easy part.
Yeah.
That's the fun part. That's why they call it playing.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's what we say in this business is, or I say, they pay me to travel. I sing for free.
Yeah.
And you'll hear that. If you ask somebody, that's very typical. The show part's the easy part. It's the other 22 hours.
Yeah.
Of your day that you got to figure out what to do with and how to get there and how to check in and check out and then sound check. I mean, that's the work. The show's the easy part. So no, I don't get tired because again, they're pretty friggin' good songs.
Yeah. There's a reason they're generational.
Yeah.
Linda from Illinois, thank you so much for continuing to play for us. I hope you realize how much we love and appreciate you in every way. Question. Before singing Daydream Believer, what do you mean by please don't sing along, it puts me off?
It's an homage to Davy, who used to use that line all the time. So occasionally, if any of you are that familiar with it, I'll use lines from the other guys, because as an homage, and he used to do that as a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The loss of Davy was personal for all of us. Would you mind sharing anything with us?
Well, the loss of all three of my my compadres, I'm not sure I've processed it all, to be honest. David, that came as a big shock to everybody. He was presumably in pretty good health, and he'd had a physical supposedly to go on tour and stuff, and that was just out of the blue. That was a big shock. Peter, not as much, because it was well known he had some health issues. And Mike, again, not a big shock. But I don't know, it's like losing a sibling. I mean, so what can I say?
Yeah, that's completely fair. Second to last question here. Bryna from Los Angeles. What do you have a most memorable episode from the Monkees shows?
I don't remember them as episodes because we filmed continuously. Say we would start an episode on a Monday and film it for 3 days. Every episode was made in 3 days, single camera. Pretty intense, 10, 12 hours a day. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we'd film one episode. Thursday, we'd start the next episode. And we'd film that Thursday, Friday, Monday. Had the weekend off where I would be recording or we'd be rehearsing for the tour. But start the filming again on Monday, finish that episode, and then start the next one Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then start the next one Friday, Monday, too. And it all became one just huge episode. I don't remember any episodes because they really didn't have a start and a finish. Yeah. I remember people.
Sure.
And I remember people in the crew, and I remember people in the cast. Rosemarie became very, very close. We loved her. And Hans Conried, and I'm just trying to think, Stan Freberg, who I was such a huge fan of when he was on the show. And so I remember people.
That makes sense. You have, we kind of talked about it a little bit. You've produced, you've directed, you've acted, you're a singer, you're a musician, you're an author, you're an inventor. You've just had this tremendously artistic and creative career. Is there any one of them that means more to you, or do you embrace all of it equally?
It depends on the material. And I've been asked that question a lot. Either I'm a Renaissance man or a dilettante. It depends on the material for me. If I would rather be performing, say, in a great, brilliant Broadway musical than acting in a crappy TV show.
Sure.
Or vice versa.
Yeah.
I'd rather be directing a great episode or a film here than singing a lousy song. Yeah. For me, it's always the material. No matter what what you call it, the field
sure.
it would be in. It's like show me the script or show me the song, and it just for me it just comes down to that.
It's a medium, then
the medium.
Yeah, the medium you're dealing with.
Yeah.
What is it like for you before I know we got to get you out of here, but last question. What's it like coming on this cruise, because we haven't seen you in a couple of years, and performing for these crowds?
Thank God it's smooth. I like these cruises. They're fun. I don't like getting on and off the boat.
None of us do.
None of us do. That is horrible. 5:45 tomorrow morning.
Bright and early.
I got my call. I hate that part. But I love the fact that it's a captured, what's it called?
Captured audience.
Captive audience.
Yeah.
You can't go anywhere. So you gotta listen to me. And on these kind of cruises, the Flower Power cruises, of course, it's great having, multiple fans and people that really appreciate the music. And we as artists really appreciate you for spending the time and money to come out here.
And I think, but you can applaud for that. That's all right. Yeah. I don't know it. I don't think you know this, and I don't know if you know this, but the individual might be in the room. I have not seen this yet, but we do doors. So 30 minutes before the start of the show, we open the doors. And so people can line up as early as they want to come into the show. Some shows people come right on time. Some people they show an hour early or whatever. Somebody for your show yesterday was lined up 5 hours early to make sure they could get into the front row to see you perform.
Wow.
They gave up their entire cruise.
I got to give them a handshake or a whatever.
5 hours.
Is that person
early.
here?
I didn't see the young woman, but yeah.
No, because they're asleep.
Yeah, she's resting.
Like,
spent 5 hours
I got to get some rest.
Sitting in a hallway.
Got to get some food.
Wasting away. As always, it is so fantastic to have you with us, my friend. Do me a favor, everybody. The legendary Micky Dolenz.
Join us for another trip back to the 60s on the 2024 Flower Power Cruise. Our lineup features the legends of the Love Generation, including the Rascals, Tommy James and the Shondells, John Kay of Steppenwolf, Randy Bachman, founder of Bachman Turner Overdrive and the Guess Who, the Moody Blues' John Lodge, the Family Stone, Gary Lewis and the Playboys, the Grassroots, the Buckinghams, the Box Tops, the Cowsills, the Vogues, cruise host Peter Asher, A Spoonful of Love, and more to be added. Get to know the artists at interactive events, including Q&As and panel discussions, game shows, and more. Plus, travel back to the era of bell-bottoms and tie-dye during nightly theme parties under the Caribbean stars. Departing from Miami March 21st, 2024 on the luxurious Celebrity Summit and making stops in the beautiful ports of San Juan and St. Croix. Flower Power Cruise sells out each year, so don't wait. You don't want to miss the next grooviest trip at sea.